The Galactic Senate Chamber was the most beautiful place in known space. Giant crystal walls rose up toward a ceiling that seemed to touch the stars themselves. Light from 3 different suns poured through the transparent panels and created rainbows on the polished floor. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, each one breathing their own specially prepared atmosphere through personal environmental suits. Ambassador Marcus Chin sat in the human section, which was notably small compared to the older species. Humanity had only been traveling among the stars for 300 years. In galactic terms, they were practically newborns. Most of the other species had been spacefaring for thousands of years, and some for tens of thousands. Marcus was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and calm brown eyes that rarely showed emotion. He had served as humanity's voice in this chamber for 15 years, and in that time he had learned one important lesson. The galaxy respected power. It respected age. It did not respect newcomers who had barely figured out how to travel faster than light. Today was supposed to be a routine session. Trade agreements, border disputes, the usual boring matters that kept civilization running smoothly. But Marcus had noticed something strange when he arrived. The other ambassadors were nervous. They kept glancing at their communication devices and whispering to their aides. Then the massive doors at the far end of the chamber opened, and everything became clear. Emperor Viralthex of the Dominion Hegemony walked into the room like he owned it. In many ways, he did own it. The hegemony controlled more than 200 star systems and had conquered or absorbed 30 different species over its 12,000-year history. Viralthex himself was an impressive sight. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 powerful arms and skin that looked like polished bronze metal. His eyes were completely black. They swept across the chamber with obvious contempt. Behind him marched 50 of his Imperial guards, each one carrying weapons that were definitely not allowed inside the Senate chamber. Nobody tried to stop them. Nobody dared. But it was not the Emperor or his guards that made Marcus sit up straighter in his chair. It was what he could see through the crystal walls. Outside the station, filling the space that had been empty just hours ago, was the largest military fleet Marcus had ever seen. Hundreds of hegemony warships hung in the void like a swarm of angry metal insects. Their weapons were powered and ready. The chamber fell completely silent as Viralthex walked to the central platform. He did not ask permission to speak. He simply spoke. "I am here to deliver a message to the species known as humanity." His voice boomed through the translation systems. "You have expanded into territories that border our space. You have established colonies on worlds that we have claimed. You have shown disrespect to our merchants and diplomats. This is unacceptable." Marcus remained perfectly still in his seat. Around him, he could feel the other ambassadors shifting uncomfortably. Many of them had experienced this before. The hegemony had a habit of finding reasons to expand its territory. "The Dominion hegemony hereby demands the following," Viralthex continued. "Humanity will surrender all colony worlds within 50 light years of our border. Humanity will pay tribute in the form of resources and technology. Humanity will accept vassal status within the hegemony. These terms are not negotiable." Soft murmur ran through the chamber. Vassal status meant giving up independence. It meant becoming servants to the hegemony. It meant the end of human freedom among the stars. "You have one standard day to accept these terms," Viralthex said. "If you refuse, the fleet you see outside this station will begin the systematic destruction of your species. We will burn your colonies. We will shatter your homeworld. We will erase humanity from the galaxy as though you never existed." The Emperor paused and looked directly at Marcus with those terrible black eyes. "Do not think that anyone will come to help you. The other species here have learned their place. They know better than to interfere with hegemony business. You are alone, human. You have always been alone. And now you will learn what happens to young species who do not show proper respect to their betters." Viralthex smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "I suggest you use your final day wisely." The chamber remained silent. Every eye was on Marcus Chen, waiting to see how the human ambassador would respond. Would he beg? Would he try to negotiate? Would he simply accept the inevitable? Marcus did something that nobody expected. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small device. It was barely larger than his thumb, made of simple gray metal with a single button on its surface. "What is that?" Vrolthex demanded. "What are you doing?" Marcus pressed the button. A soft beep indicated that the device had activated. A tiny light blinked to show that a signal was being transmitted. "I am sending a message," Marcus said. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. "A message?" The Emperor laughed. It was a harsh sound like metal scraping against stone. "To whom your tiny fleet? They are days away from this location. By the time they arrive, this station will be dust and your colonies will be burning." "I did not send the message to our fleet," Marcus replied. "Then to whom?" "Your politicians. Your generals. Do you think they can somehow save you from what is coming?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. He looked completely relaxed, as though he was discussing the weather rather than the destruction of his entire species. "I sent the message to everyone," he said. Simply, Vrolthex stared at him with confusion. "Everyone on Earth received that signal," Marcus continued. "Everyone on our colony worlds. Every human being with access to a communication device just learned that someone has threatened to destroy us." "And what good will that do?" the Emperor demanded. "Knowing about their death will not prevent it." Marcus smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of his lips, but somehow it made several of the Imperial guards take a step backward. "You do not understand humans very well, do you?" Marcus asked. "Let me explain something about my species. When you threaten us, we do not hide. We do not beg. We do not negotiate." He stood up slowly from his chair. "When you threaten a human, you wake something up. Something old. Something that evolved on a world so dangerous that most species could not survive there for a single day. You have just told every human being in the galaxy that you want to destroy them." Marcus began to laugh. It started as a soft chuckle but grew into genuine amusement that echoed through the silent chamber. "Why are you laughing?" Vrolthex demanded. His confident expression had begun to change into something else. "Something that might have been uncertainty, because you have made a terrible mistake," Marcus said between laughs. "You declared war on a Deathworld species, Your Majesty. That signal was not a call for help. It was a dinner bell. And you just told 8 billion predators that fresh meat has arrived." He sat back down. Still smiling, "I suggest you use your final day wisely." Around the chamber, every human present had begun to smile as well. The other species watched in confused horror as the supposedly doomed humans showed no fear at all. Instead, they looked almost excited. Outside the crystal walls, the hegemony fleet continued its threatening patrol. They had no idea what was coming. Nobody did. End of Part 1. Alien Emperor proclaimed war, the Deathworlder. Representative laughed as his SOS reached the fleet part to Counselor Yulra watched the standoff from her observation post high above the Senate chamber. She was a Velthian, an insectoid species with 6 limbs and compound eyes that could see in multiple directions at once. Her people were scholars and diplomats, not warriors. They had joined the galactic community peacefully thousands of years ago and had never fought a single war. Right now, every one of her eyes was focused on the human ambassador below, and she felt a growing sense of dread in her chest. Yulra had spent the last 20 years studying humanity. It was her job to understand the newer species and help them integrate into galactic society. When humans first arrived on the scene, most species had dismissed them as unimportant. They were small, relatively weak physically, and had technology that was centuries behind the established powers. Yulra had known from the beginning that everyone was making a mistake. She remembered her first research trip to Earth, the human homeworld. The ship's computer had classified it as a Category 12 death world before they even entered orbit. Category 12 was the highest danger rating possible. Most intelligent species evolved on peaceful garden worlds with stable climates and few natural predators. Earth was the opposite of that. The planet experienced extreme temperature, variations that would kill most species within hours. Its surface was constantly reshaping itself through volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. The atmosphere produced violent electrical storms that set entire forests on fire. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, there were predators. Yulra had watched from the safety of her ship as creatures called sharks hunted in the oceans. These were pure killing machines, barely changed in hundreds of millions of years, because they were already perfect at what they did. On land, there were wolves and bears and big cats that could tear a person apart in seconds. There were tiny insects that carried deadly diseases. There were plants that produced poison. And humans had not only survived on this nightmare world, they had thrived. They had done something even more insane. They had looked at some of these predators and decided to make them into pets. Wolves had become dogs. Big cats had become house cats. Humans actually invited killing machines into their homes and treated them like family members. When Yulra first learned this, she had not believed it. She had requested additional verification 3 times before accepting that the information was accurate. But the most disturbing thing she had learned about humans was their history. They had never stopped fighting. From the moment they developed the ability to make weapons, they had used those weapons against everything around them. They hunted the largest predators to extinction. They fought against their own kind in endless wars. They developed increasingly deadly technologies, not for defense, because they genuinely enjoyed finding new ways to destroy things. Other species developed weapons when they absolutely had to. Humans developed weapons first and then looked for reasons to use them. The resource. Wars of their 22nd century had nearly destroyed them. Their planet had been pushed to the edge of death, and billions of their own kind had died. Any other species would have been broken by such a catastrophe. Humans had simply looked at the destruction they had caused and decided to aim their aggression somewhere else. They had united under a single government and turned their eyes to the stars, not in search of peace. In search of new challenges, Yulra had tried to warn the Galactic Council about this. She had written reports explaining that humans were fundamentally different from other intelligent species. They were not peaceful explorers who had developed technology as a side effect of curiosity. They were predators who had clawed their way to the top of the most dangerous planet in known space. And they would treat the galaxy the same way they had treated their homeworld. Nobody had listened. Humans were young and weak and technologically inferior. What possible threat could they pose? Now Yulra watched as Emperor Vralthex made the worst mistake of his long life, and she understood that she had to try one more time. She activated her private communication channel to the Hegemony command ship. It took several minutes to get through, but eventually she was connected to one of the Emperor's advisors. "I must speak with the Emperor immediately," she said. "This attack on humanity must be stopped." The counselor speaks out of turn. The advisor replied coldly. "The Hegemony does not take orders from scholars. This is not an order. This is a warning. You do not understand what you are provoking. You're provoking nothing. We are simply expanding our territory, as we have done for 12,000 years. The humans will submit or die. There is no other option." Yulra felt frustration building inside her. "Your entire military doctrine is based on intimidation. You show overwhelming force, and other species surrender because they are afraid. It has always worked because every species you have conquered evolved on peaceful worlds. They do not know how to fight back. And the humans are different?" The advisor's voice was mocking. "Yes," Yulra insisted. "They evolved on a death world. They have been fighting since before they could walk upright. Your intimidation will not make them afraid. It will make them excited. They will see your fleet as a challenge, and humans love challenges. You exaggerate their capabilities? I have studied them for 20 years. I am not exaggerating anything. Right now, every human in the galaxy has received a message telling them that someone has threatened their species. Do you know what they are doing? They are not hiding. They are not crying. They are arming themselves." There was a pause on the other end of the communication. "Our sensors have detected some unusual activity near human space," the advisor admitted. "But it appears to be civilian traffic, not military vessels." "That is because humans do not wait for their military when they are threatened," Yulra said urgently. "They do not have separate warrior and civilian classes like we do. Every human is a potential soldier. Every ship they own can become a weapon. They are coming here, and they are bringing everything they have possible. Civilians cannot fight against warships. Humans will, and they will not stop until either they are dead or you are. The advisor was silent for a long moment. I will convey your concerns to the Emperor, he finally said, but I do not think he will change his plans based on the fears of a scholar. The connection ended. Yul returned back to the observation window. In the distance, she could see the hegemony fleet maintaining its threatening formation. They were confident in their power. They had never lost a war, but they had never fought. Deathworlders before. She checked her long-range sensors and felt her heart sink. The unusual activity that the hegemony had dismissed was getting closer. Thousands of ships were approaching at maximum speed. Cargo vessels, mining platforms, passenger liners, construction ships. All of them were moving toward Concord Station. All of them were human. They were not waiting for rescue. They were coming to fight. Yulra whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. She prayed for the hegemony soldiers who had no idea what was about to happen. She did not pray for the humans. They did not need prayers. They needed something to kill. End of part. 2 Alien Emperor proclaimed war. The Deathworlder representative laughed as his SOS. Reached the fleet Part 3. 48 hours had passed since Emperor Vralthex delivered his ultimatum. The deadline for surrender had come and gone. The human government had not responded at all. No messages, no negotiations, no pleas for mercy. Just silence. Vralthex sat in his command throne aboard the flagship of his invasion fleet. He was growing impatient. He had expected the humans to beg, to offer concessions, to do anything to avoid destruction. Instead, they had done nothing. Open a channel to the Senate chamber, he commanded. I will give them one final chance. His communication officers obeyed, and soon the face of Ambassador Marcus Chen appeared on the main screen. The human looked exactly the same as he had 2 days ago. Calm, relaxed, almost bored. Your deadline has passed, Vralthex announced. You have not surrendered. I will now begin the destruction of your nearest colony world. Millions of your kind will die because of your stubbornness. Before you do that, Marcus said calmly, you might want to check your sensors. Vralthex gestured to his tactical officers. They activated the long-range scanners, and the main display changed to show the space around the station. What the Emperor saw made no sense. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. They kept coming. Wave after wave. More ships than Vralthex had ever seen in one place. But they were wrong. They were not military vessels. They were civilian ships of every size and type imaginable. What is this? Vralthex demanded. What are these ships? Those are my people, Marcus replied. When I sent that signal 48 hours ago, it reached every human in the galaxy. They dropped what they were doing, armed their ships with whatever they could find, and came here. These are not warships, the Emperor said with contempt. They are cargo haulers and mining vessels. They cannot possibly challenge my fleet. You are correct that they are not warships, Marcus agreed. That mining ship they're used to carry? Now it carries nuclear warheads that the crew built themselves during the journey. That passenger liner has had its hull reinforced with armor plating. The crew welded on guns from a destroyed pirate vessel they found along the way. Vralthex stared at the screen in disbelief. Those construction platforms have been modified to fire their industrial cutting lasers as weapons. The cargo haulers are packed with explosives. Even that small private yacht has a crew of retired soldiers who really wanted to shoot something today. This is madness, Vralthex said. Civilians cannot fight a war. Humans can, Marcus replied. And they do regularly. You see, Emperor, we do not have a separate warrior class like most species. Every human is capable of violence. Every human has the instinct to fight. We just usually control it because society requires us to be polite. He smiled. You gave us permission to stop being polite. First wave of human ships attacked before Vralthex could respond. It was chaos. Complete, absolute chaos. The human ships did not fight like military vessels. They did not maintain formation. They did not follow tactical doctrines. They did not behave rationally at all. A cargo hauler flew directly at a hegemony destroyer, accelerating to maximum speed. The destroyer's weapons tore the hauler apart, but the debris continued forward and crashed into the destroyer's shields. While the shields were recovering, 2 more civilian ships swooped in and fired everything they had. Mining vessels used their drilling lasers to cut through hegemony armor. The beams were never designed for combat, but they did not care. They burned through metal just as easily as they burned through rock. A passenger liner rammed directly into a hegemony cruiser. The impact destroyed both ships, but the humans did not hesitate. More ships moved forward to take their place. Vralthex watched in horror as his perfectly trained fleet was swarmed by enemies who seemed to have no fear of death at all. "They are insane," he whispered. "They are completely insane," his tactical officer reported in a trembling voice. "Emperor, we are taking heavy losses. Our targeting computers cannot predict their movements. They do not follow any known combat patterns." "Then improvise," Vralthex shouted. "We have the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Our weapons are designed for rational opponents, Emperor. These humans are not rational. They are flying into our firing lines deliberately. They are using their own ships as missiles. One vessel just detonated its reactor core intentionally. 2 damaged 3 of our cruisers." A massive explosion lit up the screen as a hegemony battleship was hit by a concentrated attack from dozens of small human craft. The attackers were destroyed in the process, but they did not seem to care. More ships were already moving forward. Vralthex could not understand what he was seeing. These were not soldiers. These were ordinary civilians. Miners and traders and transport workers and retired people who should have been at home doing ordinary things. Instead, they had armed themselves with whatever they could find and crossed the galaxy to throw themselves into battle against the most powerful military force in known space. "Pull back," he ordered. "Defensive formation." His fleet tried to reorganize, but the humans gave them no time. Every moment of hesitation was exploited. Every gap in the formation was filled with explosive-laden civilian craft. A communication request came through from one of the human ships. Vralthex accepted it, hoping to negotiate. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to an elderly human woman with white hair and fierce eyes. Behind her, he could see other humans working frantically at improvised control stations. "Hello there," the woman said cheerfully. "I am Captain Margaret Chen. No relation to the ambassador, but we share the same last name, so I figured I should introduce myself. I used to run a tour company before all this excitement started. You are attacking my fleet with a tour ship," Vralthex said incredulously. "Modified tour ship," she corrected. "We added guns. Also, explosives. One of my passengers used to work in demolitions. Very helpful fellow. This is suicide. You cannot defeat us with tourism vessels." "Probably not," Margaret agreed. "But we can hurt you. We can slow you down. And every hour we keep you busy, here's another hour for more of our people to arrive." She grinned, and Vralthex saw the same expression he had seen on the ambassador's face 2 days ago. "My grandson is on one of those colony worlds you threatened," Margaret said. "Did you really think we were going to let you burn our children while we sat at home and watched?" She cut the communication. Vralthex sat in his command throne and watched as his invincible fleet was slowly torn apart by the army of angry civilians who refused to accept that they were supposed to. Luzi was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake, but it was far too late to take it back. End of part. 3 Alien Emperor proclaimed war. The Deathworlder representative laughed as his SOS reached the fleet part, for the battle had raged for 6 hours. Emperor Vralthex stood at the center of his command deck, watching the tactical display with growing disbelief. His fleet had destroyed more than 3,000 human vessels. By every reasonable calculation, that should have ended the fight. Instead, the humans kept coming. More ships arrived every hour. Word had spread across human space, and civilians were abandoning their jobs, their homes, their normal lives to join the battle. Some of them traveled for days just to reach the fight. By the time they arrived, many of them had only enough fuel for a one-way trip. They came anyway. Varalthex had lost 47 warships. 47 of the most advanced military vessels in the galaxy. Destroyed by miners and traders and retired people flying modified civilian craft. His fleet still held a massive advantage in firepower, but his crews were exhausted and demoralized. They had never faced an enemy like this before. Emperor, his communication officer, said hesitantly, "The human ambassador is requesting a ceasefire to discuss terms." Varalthex felt a surge of hope. Perhaps the humans had finally realized they could not win. Perhaps they were ready to negotiate. Accept the request, he commanded. "Order all ships to hold fire." The battle slowly stopped as both sides pulled back. The space between the fleets was filled with debris from destroyed ships and frozen bodies drifting in the void. It was a terrible sight, but Varalthex did not care. He only wanted this nightmare to end. Marcus Chen appeared on the main screen. He looked exactly the same as he had at the beginning. Calm, relaxed, completely untroubled by the destruction around him. "Thank you for accepting the ceasefire," Marcus said politely. "I wanted to give you one last chance to avoid total annihilation." Varalthex stared at him. "You want to give me a chance? Your people are dying by the thousands. Your civilian fleet cannot possibly destroy my remaining ships. You are losing this battle, am I?" Marcus asked. "Let me tell you a story, Emperor. A story about my species." He leaned forward slightly. 200 years before we discovered faster-than-light travel, my people fought a war against themselves. It was called World War II. One side was led by a nation that believed they were superior to all others. They conquered country after country, killing millions of people along the way. They were winning. By every reasonable calculation, they should have won.
"And what happened?"
Varalthex asked despite himself. "The other side refused to surrender," Marcus said simply. "They were outgunned and outnumbered, but they kept fighting. They lost battle after battle, and they kept fighting. They watched their cities burn, and they kept fighting. They invented new weapons, new tactics, new ways to hurt their enemies, and eventually they won." "What does this ancient history have to do with anything?" Marcus smiled. "It has everything to do with everything. You see, Emperor, humans have never accepted defeat gracefully. When someone threatens us, we do not calculate our chances of survival. We simply fight. We fight until we win or until every single one of us is dead. There is no middle ground." He paused to let that sink in. "The civilians out there are not trying to defeat your fleet. They know they cannot do that. They are trying to hurt you as badly as possible while buying time." "Time for what?" you might ask. Varalthex felt a cold sensation spreading through his body. "Our military fleet is not coming here," Marcus continued. "They never were. While you have been focused on this battle, they have been traveling to a different location." "Where?" Varalthex demanded. "Where are they going?" "Everywhere," Marcus replied. "Right now, human warships are positioned around every major hegemony world. Your homeworld, your industrial centers, your food production planets. Every system that keeps your empire functioning." Varalthex's tactical officers frantically checked their long-range sensors. Their faces went pale as they confirmed what the ambassador was saying. "You expanded too aggressively," Marcus explained. "You conquered so many worlds that you could not defend them all at once. You left your core systems protected by only small garrison forces, trusting that your reputation would keep enemies away." He shrugged. "We noticed. This is not possible," Varalthex stammered. "You cannot threaten the entire hegemony. You do not have enough ships." "We have enough to hurt you," Marcus said. "We have enough to burn your crops and destroy your factories and kill millions of your people. We probably cannot conquer your empire, but we can make you bleed for 1,000 years." The Emperor sat down heavily in his throne. His perfect plan had completely collapsed. He had come here to intimidate a young species into submission, and instead, he had walked into a trap. "You have two choices," Marcus said, his voice hardening. "The first choice is to withdraw your fleet immediately and sign a non-aggression treaty. You will release all species currently under your control. You will pay reparations for this attack, and you will never threaten humanity again. And the second choice? The second choice is to continue this war and learn exactly how far humans are willing to go when someone threatens our people." Marcus paused. "I should mention that several of our colony worlds have already started building new weapons. The kind of weapons that most species consider too terrible to use. We built them once before, during our resource wars. We promised ourselves never to build them again," he smiled. "And there was nothing friendly in it. You are giving us an excuse to break that promise." Voralthex looked at the tactical display. He looked at the debris of his destroyed ships. He looked at the endless waves of human civilian vessels still arriving at the battle zone. He thought about what his homeworld would look like after human warships finished with it. "I need time to consult with my advisors," he said finally. "You have 1 hour," Marcus replied. "After that, the offer expires, and we go back to fighting. Personally, I hope you choose to continue the war. My people could use a good workout." The screen went dark. Voralthex sat in silence for a long moment. His advisors gathered around him, but none of them spoke. They all knew what had happened. They had challenged a Deathworld species and discovered why such species were so rare in the galaxy. Most species that evolved on dangerous worlds died on those worlds. Only the most stubborn, the most violent, the most absolutely determined to survive ever made it to the stars. Humanity was exactly that kind of species, and Voralthex had just given them a reason to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. He closed his eyes and accepted that his empire would never be the same. End of part. For Alien Emperor proclaimed war, the Deathworlder representative. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Concord Station. The galaxy had changed in ways that nobody could have predicted. Counselor Yulra stood at a viewing window aboard the rebuilt station, watching ships come and go from the busy docking ports below. The traffic had increased dramatically since the war ended. Species that had once been afraid to travel freely now moved through hegemony space without fear. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries were opening up again. The treaty signing had taken place in this very station. In the same chamber where Emperor Voralthex had delivered his ultimatum, Yulra had watched as the One-Sprout Emperor agreed to every single human demand. Withdrawal from 12 contested systems, release of 4 species from vassal status, reparations in the form of technology and resources. A formal apology broadcast across the galaxy. The mighty hegemony had been humbled by a species that most people had considered insignificant just a year ago. Voralthex still ruled his empire, but his reputation was destroyed. He was now known as the Emperor who lost to the youngest species in the galaxy. Many of his own people secretly questioned whether he was fit to lead. There were whispers of rebellion in the outer territories, but Yulra was not thinking about the hegemony today. She was thinking about what came next. A soft chime announced a visitor at her door. She turned to find Ambassador Marcus Chen standing in the entrance, holding 2 cups of a hot human drink called coffee. "I thought you might want some company," he said. "And caffeine?" Yulra accepted the cup carefully, with 2 of her limbs. Human drinks were often too strong for other species, but she had learned to appreciate this one. "You seem troubled," Marcus observed. "Is something wrong?" "I am trying to understand what happens now," Yulra admitted. "The balance of power in the galaxy has shifted dramatically. Other species are looking at humanity differently than before. Are they afraid of us? Some of them, yes. But most of them are looking at you with something else. Something that looks like hope." Marcus considered this as he sipped his coffee. "For thousands of years, the hegemony has dominated this region of space," Yulra continued. "Other species learned to submit because resistance seemed impossible. You proved that it was not impossible. You proved that empires can be challenged and defeated." "We did not defeat them alone," Marcus pointed out. We had help. Every civilian who grabbed a weapon and flew toward the battle. Every person who risked their life without being asked. That is exactly what I mean, Ylra said. Other species saw that. They saw ordinary people standing up against a superior military force and refusing to back down. It reminded them that they have choices too. She gestured toward the window. Already there are movements on several hegemony worlds. People are asking why they should continue to obey an emperor who cannot even handle one small species. The vassal states, "You freed are inspiring others to seek their own freedom? And you think this is our fault?" "I think this is your gift," Ylra corrected. "Whether you intended it or not, you have changed the galaxy. Other species now believe that standing up for themselves is possible." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I received a message from Captain Margaret Chen yesterday," he finally said, "the retired tour operator who led one of the first attacks. She wanted to know when the next war would be. She wants to fight again. She wants to help again. She said that fighting for her grandson's future was the most meaningful thing she had done in decades. She is not alone. Thousands of the civilian volunteers have contacted our government, asking for more ways to contribute." Marcus shook his head with a mixture of amusement and concern. "We are a strange species," he admitted. "We spend most of our lives trying to stay busy because we get bored easily. We create problems for ourselves just to have something to solve. And when someone gives us a real enemy to fight, a real cause to believe in, we become more alive than ever." "Is that not dangerous?" Ylra asked. "It's very dangerous," Marcus agreed. "If we do not find constructive ways to channel our energy, we tend to destroy things, including ourselves. That is why the hegemony's threat was so foolish. They gave us a common enemy at exactly the moment when we were getting restless." He finished his coffee and set the cup aside. "But it can also be wonderful. When humans work together toward a goal we believe in, there is nothing in the galaxy that can stop us. We walked on our moon less than a century after we invented powered flight. We cured diseases that had killed millions. We crossed the galaxy in ships we built with our own hands. Now we need a new goal. The hegemony is no longer a threat, but my people are still restless. We need something positive to focus on, or we will start causing trouble just to have something to do." Ylra looked out at the busy station below. Ships from dozens of species were docked together, their crews trading and talking and learning about each other. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "you could focus on building something instead of destroying something." "What do you mean?" "The hegemony controlled these trade routes through fear. Now that fear is gone, but there's nothing to replace it. Someone needs to create new relationships between species. Someone needs to help the freed vassal states rebuild their independence. Someone needs to show the galaxy that cooperation is possible." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You want us to become peacekeepers?" "I want you to become bridge builders," Ylra corrected. "You have proven that you can fight. Now prove that you can create. Use that endless human energy to connect species instead of conquering them." Marcus was silent for a long moment, considering her words. Finally, he smiled. It was a genuine smile, warm and thoughtful. "I will bring this idea to my government," he said. "I cannot promise they will accept it. Humans are not naturally peaceful. We prefer action to diplomacy." "Then make diplomacy into action," Ylra suggested. "Turn every negotiation into a challenge. Make peace interesting enough to hold your attention." Marcus laughed. "You understand us better than most species? I have been studying you for 20 years. I know exactly how dangerous you can be." She paused. "I also know how much good you could do if you chose to." They stood together at the window, watching the future take shape below them. Ships came and went. Species that had been enemies for centuries were learning to trade with each other. The old order was crumbling, and something new was rising to take its place. Whether that something would be better or worse remained to be seen. But for the first time, in a very long time, there was hope. And at the center of it all, deliberately or not, were the Deathworlders who had reminded the galaxy that even the mightiest empires could fall. 1 year later, the Galactic Unity Initiative was established with humanity as its founding member. Their motto, chosen by Ambassador Marcus Chen himself, was simple but powerful. Alone we fall. The galaxy would never be the same. End of Part 5. The end.